reign takes office with Nick Clegg as Deputy Prime Minister and 4 other Liberal Democrats in the Cabinet, as Mike was just mentioning. First tonight, our political editor Nick Robinson on the day's historic events.
You thought it was all over? It is now. Gordon Brown didn't wait for his rivals to do a deal. He resigned tonight when it was clear that his audacious bid to stay in power and create what he called a progressive coalition had failed.
As you know, the general election left no party able to command a majority in the House of Commons. I said I would do all that I could to ensure a strong, stable and principled government was formed, able to tackle Britain's economic and political challenges effectively. My constitutional duty is to make sure that a government can be formed following last Thursday's general election. I've informed the Queen's private secretary that it's my intention to tender my resignation to the Queen. In the event that the Queen accepts, I shall advise her to invite the Leader of the Opposition to seek to form a government. I wish the next Prime Minister well as he makes the important choices for the future. Only those who have held the office of Prime Minister can understand the full weight of its responsibilities and its great capacity for good. I have been privileged to learn much about the very best in human nature and a fair amount too about its frailties, including my own. My resignation as leader of the Labour Party will take effect immediately, and in this hour I want to thank all my colleagues, ministers, members of Parliament, and I want to thank above all my staff who have been friends as well as brilliant servants of the country. Above all, I want to thank Sarah for her unwavering support as well as her love and for her own service to our country. I thank my sons, John and Fraser, for the love and joy they bring to our lives. And as I leave the second most important job I could ever hold, I cherish even more the first, as a husband and father. Thank you, and goodbye.
And with that, he and New Labour took their leave of Downing Street 13 years after they moved in. But not before the Browns, all of them, young John and Fraser too, faced the cameras together for the very first time, before travelling in Daddy's official car to go to see the Queen, to explain that it was time for someone else to have a turn at running the country. Following them out of the door, Alistair Campbell and other faces and names of the Brown years, Ed Balls, Ed Miliband, future leaders perhaps. At Labour HQ, Gordon Brown made clear he was resigning immediately as Labour leader. Harriet Harman will take his place until a successor is elected. And he took responsibility for an election failure.
And I have to accept and indeed assert personal responsibility. The fault is mine, and I will carry that alone.
As the sun set on one political era, a new one began, with the arrival at Buckingham Palace of the man about to become our youngest Prime Minister in nearly 200 years. This, the first ever image of a monarch inviting one of her subjects to form a new administration. This was the journey which David and Samantha Cameron had for so long dreamt of, talked about, and this week begun to wonder if they'd ever make. The journey to the most famous address in the world, and to power. Not for him, though, the sunshine and optimism of Tony Blair's first day in office. By now it was dark and cold. His first words as Prime Minister, a warning about difficult times to come.
Her Majesty the Queen has asked me to form a new government, and I have accepted. Before I talk about that new government, let me say something about the one that has just passed. Compared with a decade ago, this country is more open at home and more compassionate abroad, and that is something we should all be grateful for. And on behalf of the whole country, I'd like to pay tribute to the outgoing Prime Minister for his long record of dedicated public service. In terms of the future, our country has a hung parliament where no party has an overall majority, and we have some deep and pressing problems, a huge deficit, deep social problems, and a political system in need of reform. For those reasons, I aim to form a proper and full coalition between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. I believe that is the right way to provide this country with the strong, the stable, the good and decent government that I think we need so badly. Nick Clegg and I are both political leaders who want to put aside party differences and work hard for the common good and for the national interest. I believe that is the best way to get the strong government that we need, decisive government that we need today.
By now, Downing Street was a Labour-free zone. The waiting faces and names ones will soon get to know. There too, civil servants whose allegiance must switch in an instant.
Real change is not what government can do on its own. Real change is when everyone pulls together, comes together, works together, when we all exercise our responsibilities to ourselves, to our families, to our communities, and to others. And I want to help try and build a more responsible society here in Britain. One where we don't just ask, what are my entitlements, but what are my responsibilities? This is going to be hard and difficult work. A coalition will throw up all sorts of challenges, but I believe together we can provide that strong and stable government that our country needs, based on those values, rebuilding family, rebuilding community, above all, rebuilding responsibility in our country. Those are the things I care about. Those are the things that this government will now start work on doing. Thank you very much.
And so begin the Cameron years, with a new party in power, a new coalition too, provided Nick Clegg can persuade his party to back it, and a new promise to face up to big challenges, confront problems and take difficult decisions. They may be happy tonight, but 5 days after the election, with the haggling finally over, David Cameron's already learnt that power is never easy. Nick Robinson, BBC News, Westminster.
Now, we're still waiting for the Liberal